This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
You are far more amazing than you can imagine, were words Marc Newkirk, world-class scientist, prolific inventor, and my father often said. Within each one of us are amazing, innate abilities. The majority of these abilities are lying latent within us and are rarely accessed. Most of us have become so disconnected from these abilities that we feel separate and alone. All of this is about to change. We collectively have reached a time in humanity where all of this is in the process of shifting, and the end result will be harmony, balance, support, and coherence. The indicator that this is changing is that the world is in a state of chaos and confusion. There would be no chaos and there would be no confusion if what we collectively were doing was working, and the systems in place were solidly built on strong ethical principles and firm foundations. Nature and young children are our best teachers. Within nature, you find coherence, balance, and the inner workings of a symbiotic relationship. Children have the opportunity to teach us about maintaining an open and exploratory mind, which is crucial for discovery. The best way to begin is to choose an environment that supports a higher vibration state of being. An environment that makes you feel good, whether it be a park bench, out in a field, immersed in nature, or sitting by a window. Finding a spot that brings you into a greater state of peace is where the magic has the greatest opportunity to begin to present itself. In that state, we can begin to connect to our hearts and activate our feeling universe within. Marc Newkirk used to say that if you could stop all human thought, the default would be total harmony. As more and more people begin to make steps in this direction and activate the powers within them, it will become more and more accessible to the collective. Begin to follow your joy and sing your song. Maintain a childlike mind and joy, and that will lead you to discovering more of the amazing abilities that you have within you. Valeria Teles interviews Ross Newkirk, a cutting-edge consciousness-raising technology inventor, founder and president of Conscious Technologies, an author, certified Reiki practitioner, speaker, and a board member of the Lightfield Foundation. Ross Newkirk is an inventor who has worked on cutting-edge consciousness-raising technology based on information fields for over 15 years. He worked for countless hours alongside his father, Marc Newkirk, a world-class scientist and prolific inventor, who himself had over 100 U.S. patents and over 900 foreign patents to his name. Ross is currently the founder and president of Conscious Technologies, LLC, and has created, built, and brought to market a handful of major technologies that provide a coherent space for someone to reconnect with their higher self, as well as an entire line of EMF harmonizing technologies that literally reverse the spin field of a man-made EMF to be in harmony with a person's body, which gives off a natural EMF signal itself, but in the opposite direction of how man-made EMF signals spin. He is the author of the book, Unsubscribe, a story of one man's profound discovery, and spent a number of years as the formal personal assistant to Dr. Spencer Johnson, author of Who Moved My Cheese?, The 1 Minute Manager, and Out of the Maze. He sits on the board of the Lightfield Foundation, a nonprofit foundation that his father Marc started, where Ross spent countless hours with his dad building the Lightfield and Grace technologies. Ross is a certified Reiki practitioner, and in his free time loves to hike, cold plunge, and spend time with his family. Meet Ross at ConsciousTechnologiesLLC.com, VogelCutCrystals.com, and LightfieldFoundation.com. Here is the interview with Ross Newkirk.
In your own words, who is Ross Newkirk?
Ross Newkirk, that's a great question. I would say that Ross Newkirk is someone that is here to grow and to explore all of the many amazing abilities that are lying within each one of us. And so my goal and mission in life is to help activate those in others and myself.
Yes, I love that intention and that mission, as you call it. When you say being here to grow, do you envision a destination for that growth?
Yeah, I really do. I feel like when we come into the world, we come in, as a child in a child's body. And then historically, people become more rigid and firm in their beliefs, their understandings, and their bodies. And I think the goal, is really to get back to that childlike mind, which is very exploratory. It's very free. It's very open. And in that place, infinite possibility really exists.
I love that idea of being open-minded, open-hearted, as a child, as you described. The only concern I have with that is, as children, we know we are so open and not afraid to be vulnerable that we ended up hurt and abused in so many different ways. So I'm wondering how we can sort of rescue or restore the child mind, but with the maturity and the wisdom of an adult.
I think society as a whole, in order for its own survival as well, needs to be able to move into discernment and the ability to interpret information that's being presented to us, situations, feeling out, whether someone has good intent or bad intent. And the only way to be able to really activate that discernment is actually moving out of the head and into the heart, because the heart is about 60 times more electrically active than our brains and our heads. And so if we can move into that and we move into the feeling universe that many talk about, that will be our inner compass needle that allows us to discern, who is good, who has pure intentions, what situations, might be best for us, and so forth. So I think you're right on in that, a child, can be very vulnerable. What I love about children is the openness to infinite possibilities, and they don't have the walls and the limitations that some adults, have up. But we also have that maturity, as you were talking about, that is so important as well.
Is that a practice, Russ, to living from the heart?
It really is. I think I've spent a lot of my life, like so many, where we try to plan and we try to control and we try to move around, in this world. And, and we have varying degrees of success. Our ego likes to celebrate, our successes and achievements and so forth. But what I learned is one of the greatest tools, in healing, especially, is the letting go stage. And at first, it can feel so hard to do because, there's the ego there that wants to separate us out and it wants to control, the situation. But as we release and let go and listen, there's a still small voice that exists in each one of us. And that ends up being a directional voice that can help guide our lives. And it doesn't mean that you just sit back and let life unfold. I strongly believe it's an action-filled universe and you must take action. but there is a direction that can best fit that action if we listen and start to get out of the way.
What and where is consciousness? How can you describe what that is? Or how would you describe?
Yeah, consciousness does not reside in the brain. Consciousness is multidimensional, it's universal, and we are multidimensional beings, and most of us have captured glimpses of that at least, of our multidimensionality when we hear, thoughts or ideas, or we're led to do things. For instance, you might be thinking of someone that you haven't seen for a long time, and then the phone rings, or you see them a day later. That goes way beyond this idea of brain. This is an example of tapping into our multidimensionality, and that is where also synchronicity lies. And synchronicity is what allows us to sing that song that so many of us have within us, and so many of us have not sung yet. That song that we all have, that sense of purpose that we all have within us.
And I wonder why or how this came to be, where this reality has been valuing brain mental activities, or coming from a place of psychological kind of ideas and operating from the brain. How did we come to experience the world in such a way, not just the world, but our own selves in the body from the brain?
I think that is that's the human mind that wants to understand, and so it needs a mechanism to be able to interpret what's going on. So they study the brain, and they see this neuron's firing here, and that explains activity here, and so forth. But it doesn't explain those rare instances where it's been documented where someone actually doesn't have a brain, or all of their brain. Years ago, I had seen some newspaper articles, and they had made it into a whole little documentary. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of it, but there was this chicken, and it was the farmer had cut the head off of the chicken, and it was running around like most chickens do. And next thing he knew, it had been hours, and the chicken's still, walking around. And the chicken ends up living for many, many months. It ended up being an attraction where people would come and look at this chicken, and the chicken would scratch on the ground looking for worms, just like normal chickens would, and it could do the normal activities of chickens other than eating, which they had to feed it through an eyedropper through the esophagus. But it showed you that consciousness does not reside in the brain. Those unexplainable examples show you that. And I think anytime we get inspiration, there can be perhaps a neurological result that occurs in the brain. However, spontaneous knowing, things that we had never been taught, where does that come from? That comes from, the Akashic record bank of information that is universally available to all of us when we start to tap into it.
That makes so much sense. So we just kind of moved into the realm of the mind because it became a survival mechanism, a tool to navigate this reality. Then we just kind of started operating from that naturally without realizing that we had other energy sources. I have a question for you about, have you heard about any other time in history where humans lived from the heart mainly?
Any other time in history? I know that the Native Americans, used that as their inner compass needle to navigate and connect with the animals and so forth. And I think that was what allowed them to not just survive, but really thrive out in Mother Nature, is by using that heart connection. And also there was this ability to really appreciate and express gratitude for nature. And when you do that, it ends up transforming, the berries that you pick, the meat that you harvest, and the animal consciousness too. There's like this willingness and universal working together that happens between the animal and the human, that does digest that animal. And so, yeah, I think that that's a good example of being able to operate in that, that heart space.
Let me ask you another question, open question. If life had one purpose only, what would that be from your perspective?
Mine would be to grow and to learn and realize how amazing each one of us is.
And what is your idea of spirituality these days, Russ?
Spirituality to me doesn't have walls. It doesn't have. You can gain it in many different places. You can gain it in a temple or, in a church. But you can also find that in nature. And spirituality is something that exists, within everyone. And is available, all the amazing attributes of that are available to everyone.
The article you sent me, I had so many interesting sections and passages. Let me read one of them before I ask you my next question. Many systems around us are falling apart. Support structures that we once had or relied on are falling apart. Corruption is coming to the surface and becoming more visible. Why? Because things are in the midst of great change. Are the events in 2020 connected to this great change that you speak of?
Yes, they are. A lot of people would argue that they are not great, and they and a lot of people would like to drift back to where humanity was. But the truth of the matter is, people have been controlled and suppressed and very stagnant. So many people are on the hamster wheel doing a job that they don't even love, and they're doing it to pay the bills, and they're not following their inner joy. So I think there needed to be a series of events to shake the system, so to speak, and as this system gets shaken, it does look like chaos, and it does look very scary, and it does look, hopeless at times. But ultimately, we need to come together as a community, as a species, and support each other, the planet we live on, and start to really follow our joy, because there's so many worthwhile things to do out there, and there's so many songs to sing, and each of us has our own song to sing that's equally as important, and yet most of us aren't singing them. So this is a great opportunity, and I think more and more people are starting to realize that maybe they should follow their joy. And what's neat about it is it can feel very scary at first, like, oh, well, I can't do that. I can't make a living, following my joy. But what people don't understand is when you are doing something that you do not like, you're lacking the toolkit that comes with something that when you follow your joy, you end up being gifted a toolkit that includes synchronicity, inspiration, abundance, and it starts to open up the doors. And so it's only accessible when you're in that frequency, that vibrational frequency of love and joy. So just taking that step, even though you don't see the next step, you don't actually have to see the next step. Just take that step, and then the next step will unveil itself. And it may actually take you into a different place than what you originally set out to accomplish or do. But it will be beautiful, and it will be meaningful for you.
Yeah, it sounds very playful too.
Yes.
I had some glimpses of that. I still have, I guess. Is joy and happiness the same thing to you?
Let's see. Joy and happiness, they definitely go hand in hand. I think we can be happy, but to me, like joy is like, for some reason, it feels like it's an expression of happiness. And so like when you're in that happy state, you can be still, you can just be sitting down or, walking around with just a slight glimpse of a smile. But when you go to express happiness, it comes out in the form of joy, or at least that's how I sort of envision it. Just jumping with joy, just this appreciation for life, for synchronicities, for being alive, for thriving, for recognizing something in nature that is just so intricately beautiful.
Yeah, wow, that's like a song, the way you speak even. Yeah, thank you for being open to life, Russ, and for doing what you do, which I'll be asking you questions in a moment about it. You wrote, "We have the ability to self-heal. Our bodies can literally heal themselves." So it's all healing, self-healing, first question. And the second is, how do the right healing modality that work better for us, how do we find that path?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I found was that to start from the premise of ideas, and if you focus on Ross or Valeria or yourself as an idea or a thought field, and a thought field is created of qualities. So you would never list like something negative, about yourself when you're truly trying to describe yourself. You wouldn't throw in the word limp or injured arm. You would throw in, if someone said, "What are your qualities?" You would say like, kindness, gentleness, loving, intelligence, all those kind of things. And so what I find to be very effective is to think in terms of qualities. And when you think in terms of qualities, what may be trying to present itself that is something you don't prefer, or an ailment or an injury, is not in that list. And it makes it less real. And you can actually start to release, whatever issue you're having by putting yourself in a higher frequency band where that problem or injury and so forth actually does not exist, or at least it does not exist to the degree that it might have been initially presented at. It's sort of like a good example is if there's a 2-year-old child running around the house and they trip and they fall and they whack their head on a door or something, or a table. What do they normally do? They look right to mom first and they see what is mom's reaction. If mom is like, "Oh my gosh, you poor dear thing," the child will burst out in tears, and then there'll be a bruise, and then there'll be consequences, to so-called pay for the action, that happened. But if the mom is like, "Oh, you dear little one," and scoops them up and holds them and redirects that energy, the child does not have to go through the same process as they would if fear was instilled. And so, healing is absolutely amazing when we start to understand that it is a choice to some degree, and arguably to its entirety. And that, comes through our reaction to it and how real we want to make it. And that does not take away from people that seemingly are in tremendous suffering. We have to have tremendous compassion, for that. But there are choices that we can make. And I think when you asked, what healing modality is right for us, I think it comes down to resonance, and where we are in terms of the amount of believability we have, in something. And so taking, little steps is okay, and the body, and also knowing that the body was designed to heal itself. That's why you can get a cut and you don't have to focus on the cut just naturally heals. Now, if you want to speed up the process of that healing, monitoring it and smearing creams over it and looking at it every 5 minutes is not going to be the way, because it's creating that into a stronger reality. But as we start to see our skin as clear and healed and undamaged and focus on that, the healing process is sped up tremendously. And in fact, that's how you can actually experience instantaneous healings, which some of us have had, and I've certainly had some and witnessed others that have been absolutely miraculous, that from normal standpoints would be considered miracles or something that, is unexplainable.
So it's not denying our condition if we have one, but it's a matter of attention, of focus. That makes so much sense to me because everything is energy, right, Russ? I don't give attention to the negative thoughts, but sometimes I do. I'm aware that they are there. So I'm wondering if there is a moment in time or a space where we arrive at, if there's such a thing, where we don't have those negative thoughts anymore or those sparks of negative energies anymore coming to our field. Is that possible?
I think what it is it's the charge behind it, the emotion behind it. It doesn't mean that you might not have something that people would label as negative come towards you. It's just you're not as energized or upset or angry, about it. And when something doesn't have its charge and energy, it just sort of fades away. And so it's like, there will be presentations of things that you and don't prefer, but those things tend to fade away.
And in a way, we have done enough work or engaged enough in practices where we don't give energy to those thoughts anymore. That makes so much sense. So you are a consciousness rising technology inventor, a founder and president of Conscious Technologies as well. What inspired you to do what you do? And also, what is your main intention behind the work you do, Russ?
Well, thank you. My father actually set me on this path, and I'm so grateful for. He had studied consciousness 4 or 5 years, and I was raised in a family where we used meditation and thought to create, our reality and healing. So we had lots of wonderful healings growing up, and we were a very active family. Horseback riding, dirt biking, all that kind of stuff. And but my father realized that the best way to change the world was to raise consciousness, because when people are in a higher vibrational state, they end up choosing differently. They end up behaving differently. So that led him, and he was a very prolific inventor. My grandfather was an inventor. My father was named on 900 foreign patents and 100 U.S. patents, and had a brilliant mind. He was a materials engineer and had started very successful companies over the years. But he transitioned to focusing on consciousness, and so he worked with some leading edge physicists and scientists, actually from the former Soviet Union, who had studied information field technologies, which the former Soviet Union spent $500 million studying information fields. And information fields, boiled down simply, are thought fields. Thoughts create a field. And we were able to use and create information field generators to create coherence. And so we use the information from light, music, and nested geometries to create coherent space. And so the reason why we're all doing this is because we realize that these technologies that we're creating are amazing technologies, but they're actually a set of training wheels for people to realize that actually the most amazing piece of technology actually exists within each one of us. And by us creating a coherent information field, a very loving space for someone to enter into, lay down into, or be around, they can connect to higher levels of awareness and consciousness, which is within them, and receive inspiration and enter into a meditative state much easier. But ultimately, you don't need these technologies because the most amazing is within each one of us.
You have many products, some of which I have in front of me. I mentioned off record. Quantum Flow Unit. You have the Cohere Meditation Mat and the Core Harmonizer. That's the ones that I came across. So talk to me about these products and the other ones that you offer, Russ.
Yeah, the quantum flow is an amazing piece of technology. There's currently 4 in existence in the world, and we're working on getting more out there. But it uses information from light, music, and nested sacred geometries to create a environment in which, when someone goes into this environment, they are able to form a bridge between their waking self, which is what we're experiencing now, and their omniscient or super consciousness, which is all-knowing. And so these technologies assist in that elevation of thought. And what's beautiful is when someone is experienced these technologies, it's not like you just experience it there and then you come home and you're back to the old way of life, so to speak. People have developed and turned on their perceptive capabilities. There was someone that avoided a car accident because they perceived the accident happening. They had a premonition before it actually did, and they had their whole family in the car. They were driving their minivan, and a car came up and cut in front of them, and they saw that happen before the accident. And then all of a sudden, here comes the car, and they avoided the accident. And so to be able to turn on that is amazing. And also self-healing capabilities, people, are able to turn those on itself. So we don't have healing technologies. What we do is we create a space, and out of that space, the individual does that.
Wow, I love that. I love that idea. This space for healing. Yes. How many yeses I can say to that? So how do we find these technologies? How do we access them?
Oh, yeah. You can go on to conscioustechnologiesllc.com, and we have all of our technologies on there. We have the core harmonizer, the quantum flow, the cohere meditation mat. We have EMF harmonizing technologies for the signals that are around us. And we also have, my father was a world-class scientist, so I have under the resource tab his lectures that are available for free, that are a wealth of knowledge, which are amazing to listen to. So you can go there. And we also create some crystals too, vogelcutcrystals.com. vogelcutcrystals.com, and those are wonderful for amplifying intention and information, and Reiki masters and different energy workers end up using those as well.
Wow, I love that too. And you are a certified Reiki practitioner too, right, Russ?
Yes, yep, I am.
You're also a board member of the Lightfield Foundation. Talk to me for a moment about that, about your foundation.
Yeah, the Lightfield Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's located in the Berkshires in Chester, Massachusetts, and we've done approximately close to 17,000 sessions through that technology. It just operates by donations, and it looks like a giant sphere that's approximately like 8 feet tall that opens up, and an individual ends up lying down and going inside this sphere. There's a bed inside it, and it closes up. It feels very open, though, when you're in there. And you're actually lying inside a star tetrahedron, or a Merkaba, a cube, and a sphere. And then there's a console, and we're taking information from light, music, and the geometry, and putting it into that space. And the sessions over the years have just been amazing to hear. It's been amazing to see what people are able to release and the insights that they're able to gain.
And I know you traveled the country, right, Russ, and also the world. Do you go around the world presenting these technologies to people?
Actually, I haven't done a ton of traveling, but we have installed some of our technologies on the East Coast especially, and we ship them, as well. So we have portable units that people can purchase for their homes and create coherence in their homes as well. And also centers are getting our technologies. The cohere meditation mat and the core harmonizer especially are perfect for homes and centers.
Okay, and we can find that on your website. I'll have the website on your podcast profile. I don't have the second one you mentioned. I have the Conscious Technologies LLC.com. That I
Okay.
have. And the other one is, can you say that again,
It's
please?
Vogel, Vogel, cut, C-U-T, crystals.com.
Okay, wonderful. I'll have that link as well on your
Oh,
podcast
great.
profile. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you also wrote a book, Unsubscribe, a story
Yes.
of one man's profound discovery. What was the inspiration to write that book?
I actually worked for Dr. Spencer Johnson, who was a world-class author, best-selling author who wrote Who Moved My Cheese and The 1 Minute Manager. And he was a great friend of ours. And I worked with him for 5 years before he passed. And we were his personal assistant in New Hampshire and, handled, everything from building him custom furniture to shoveling his roof and, helping him book trips and so forth. Out of that, I gleaned the simplicity of his messages that were so profound, like in the book Who Moved My Cheese. And out of that came to me to write a book called Unsubscribe, which is about letting go of things in your life that don't serve you and subscribing to things that do. So it's a powerful little story that illustrates this point. And it ended up changing my life. I ended up living that, as I was writing the book as well.
That's the power of writing, isn't it? It writes itself, actually, books, when they come from that place
Exactly.
of inspiration. From the heart. So we are almost at the end. I do have a few more questions for you, the ending questions. Would you like to add anything else that we didn't cover?
I just want to let people know that we all have these amazing abilities within us, and just entering into a still place, go out in nature, sit barefoot under a tree and just, release and let go and just connect. And there's this still small voice, that is within all of us. And we can hear that, when we just start letting go of, our problems and just quieting our mind. And the solution for every single problem, no matter how big it may feel or seem, exists. It really does. And also knowing that all around the world, there are people praying for you and sending light and love your way unconditionally, because you'll never even meet these people, but they're praying for coherence and harmony on the planet, and that we all have tremendous support. We all have tremendous amount of guides and angels and love, and I think this is a time that we really need to, feel that, and so many people need to feel this, because it can be a challenging time in human history here. But love always prevails. It's the strongest force.
What do you love most about being in a human body?
Wow. Well, I can tell you today, there were 6 of us that did a cold plunge. We live on a little pond here in Rhode Island, and the water's 42 degrees right now. So we jumped in the pond for 3 to 5 minutes, and then we came out and went in a sauna and repeated that, 3 times. And so I love to be able to, I guess what it is feeling the contrast, between spirituality and the physical, and also the ability to manipulate matter in a positive way by seeing things that look, and feel so real, and start to see that they're more plastic, as we start to move into other realities and start to raise our vibration. We see that the physical, is really just blinking in and out so fast that it looks physical, but in reality, it's just consciousness or ideas or thoughts being expressed.
Yes, it's magical. That's what comes to me, magic happening right now. So true. And another question is freedom. What is your idea and understanding of freedom? What is to be free to you?
To be free is to be able to sing your song, and we all have such different songs to sing, and they're so important. And so whatever, gets you excited, follow that. And I think that leads to freedom, because the things that pull at us and nag at us and try to hold us back, they start to fall away, and they don't have that grip on us anymore. So I think freedom is really following your inner joy, and also knowing that your inner joy is constantly changing too. So you might set out on one path, but then you're led somewhere else, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And two more questions. What is another word for life?
For life, that's a good one. For life, I'm just hearing celebration, like celebration is giving honor to life. It's really living life in its fullest. Life, was meant to be joyful. It was meant to be fun. It's not something that we have to, feel obligated to, live our life a certain way. It was meant to be joyful. And I think humanity will get back to that point, and more people are. And I think as we all are, we're creating a vibrational frequency that's making it easier for the next guy. It's like the 4-minute mile. As soon as someone broke that 4-minute mile, other people all over the world started to break it, even those that never heard that it was broken. And so life is going to get more and more easier from the standpoint of being able to achieve joy, because that's truly what we're all actually entitled to.
I love that, Russ. Yeah, we are meant to be joyful, and that's so true. Even listening to that kind of sparkles something interesting. So my last question is, what are 3 things in life you wish everyone to experience before they lose the body, before they die?
I would love people to follow their joy. Even if it's just starting off on that path, just so you can feel what it feels like. Another one is to feel how connected we are, even to, Mother Nature. My father used to be able to communicate with even insects. And he said, as long as you don't see them as down there and you up there, but it's one consciousness, and it has nothing to do with this insect has a brain this big and mine's this big. If you see everything as one, so to feel the oneness, and also to feel the support and love that the universe has, for you. Even on a hard day, the sun still shines. The sun, represents, light, life force, chi energy, and it is always, even, if you mess up, the sun is still shining on your face. That's how loved you are. The universe is, my father used to say, the universe acts as if you are its only creation. That's how loved you are. And I love that, just feeling like, this universal force just, loves its creation so much.
I love how you always bring joy into the conversation. So joy is an expression of that love. So true. Thank you so much, Russ, for this conversation, for your presence, for what you do and how you do it, the beautiful intention that can be felt. And everything else actually that can be felt. It's interesting. It's energy, energetic resonance that the body feels. Everything's kind of, how amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate being on the show. So thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And once again, please let me know about the website. Where can we find more information about you, specifically your products, your services, and future projects? Those 2 websites again.
Oh, thank you. ConsciousTechnologiesLLC.com is where the technologies like the quantum flow and the EMF harmonizing products for your phones and laptops and your space. And then also the Cohere meditation mat and the core harmonizer can be found on. And then VogelCutCrystals.com. And then our nonprofit, which you had me mention, which is in the Berkshires, is LightfieldFoundation.com. LightfieldFoundation.com.
Wonderful. So I'll have all those 3 links on your podcast profile too. Thank you again, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Ross Newkirk and his work, please visit ConsciousTechnologiesLLC.com, VogelCutCrystals.com, and LightfieldFoundation.com.
learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.